Hi, this is Stephanie Stint, and this is my presentation for Module 16, the case study for parental apathy for school community relations. First of all, the problem identification and the analysis starts with what do we currently know? And we currently know that historically in John F. Kennedy School there has been minimal parent contact and involvement. There actually used to be a couple of parent organizations, but they died out for some reason. They didn't continue. We also know that the few parents show up for meetings, and the principal had talked about, he has a hard time getting parents to volunteer and actually being involved with the school. However, the principal believes that everything is fine and the parents don't really want to be involved and that they just want the school to do what the school does. And that Mrs. Rose, the assistant principal, believes there could be improved parent involvement and has approached the principal a couple of times about ways to do that. Because of that, the principal agreed to have a parent advisory meeting in which he sent a note home, and just a few parents showed up for that next meeting. What do we need to know? We do need to know, does the school currently have a community and family engagement plan? We don't know this right now because the principal didn't mention it and there was no mention of it. However, I would be surprised if the school or the district did not have some kind of family engagement plan or communication plan, because most federal programs require that there be a family engagement plan to accompany them, and the new Kansas accreditation model has a rubric for relationships specifically, which deals with family engagement and community involvement. We also don't know why the prior parent organizations did not continue. That would be helpful if we understood that. That might give us some information and a reason to better understand the problem, and then we have a better chance of solving that problem. We also don't know what the current communication methods are. The case study mentioned that the principal sent home a note, but we don't know what other kinds of ways that they use to communicate with families and with the community. I imagine they have a website, they probably have a phone calling system, they probably do emails, but we also don't know if there's a TV station or if there's a radio station, if there's ways to advertise, if there's newsletters that go home. What are all the various ways of communication? We don't know if the superintendent and or board of education is aware of the problem, and that would be good information to know because they might, being conduits into the community and to families, they may have some insight into what's causing this problem. We don't know if JFK School is an elementary or a secondary school, just because those might have different needs as far as addressing parental involvement. Typically at secondary schools you might have different strategies there because parent involvement wanes as kids get up in grade levels. And we also don't know what the demographic, economic, social, and political factors are in the community, and this would be helpful to know because we don't know if this is just a case of I don't want to be involved, or maybe that there are other barriers to their involvement that are under one of these categories. I would be surprised if it's they don't want to be involved, because most community members and families want to be somewhat involved in the education of the students they're going to be putting into their community. So the actual identification of the problem is that John F. Kennedy School has a lack of parent and community involvement. The principal does not seem to understand the importance of parental involvement and is not actively putting forth effort into improving communication and relationships with parents. And I tend to think this is less of a parent apathy problem, and that might just be a symptom of a larger problem. This may be more about a school and a leadership problem. And I will give the principal the benefit of the doubt and say maybe he's just not aware of how important it is, or he's not aware of an existing plan, or he doesn't understand strategies that he could use to better communicate and build relationships with families and community. So the proposed plan of action, step number 1 would be to gather information. And you can do that in a variety of ways, but to begin to understand the problem, it's really important to understand the culture of the community, the culture of the parents, and try to gain some perspective on maybe why the parental involvement is lagging. And we could start doing that by holding that meeting. And it might be a good opportunity, since there are so few parents, to really start building a collaborative environment with those families, and try to understand what is getting in the way. What are the barriers of parental involvement? Is it because they don't know how to be involved? Is it because they don't feel welcome? Is it really because they don't care? Or maybe it's because they trust the school to do what the school does. But it's really important to kind of figure out what those barriers are to parental involvement. Following up with that, the second thing to do would be to distribute a survey to the parents, a family engagement survey, and this would give us more information about maybe what the school does well, what the needs of the parents are, what the parents need from the school itself, and how well the school communicates with the parents. It could give us a lot of information to begin to start building our plan if we can identify some of those root causes. And the third thing I suggested for the information gathering is the principal and the assistant principal could become more visible. Talk with community members. The principal mentioned, he takes phone calls and he chats with parents at conferences, but I don't think that's adequate. I think they should become more visible in the community itself and find organizations they can go talk to, find ways that they can be out in the community, be seen in the community, and talk with community and families on a regular basis. Maybe there's organizations they could actually present to, but anytime they can get their message out about what their mission is for the school, and also in how all of these things that we're doing by trying to get families and communities involved really benefits the students and is really what's best for the students. And that's what John F. Kennedy School is going to be about, is what's best for students. The second part of the action plan would be to begin to communicate with the internal publics, the first being the superintendent. Informative of the problem if it has not already been done, and let him know what's already been tried. And again, if there's a school policy on family engagement or community involvement or communication of some kind, talk with him a little bit about why that's not being implemented as it's intended, or are there places we need to revise it, where is it, and what can we do to better implement that plan. Also communicate with the Board of Education. Again, they're the conduit to the community, they're the conduit to the families, and they might have a lot of information that would help as we move forward with the building of this plan. And then also be sure to start providing or planning to provide professional development with staff. Help them, again, understand the research behind the importance of community involvement, parent engagement, and how that does benefit students and how it does promote student achievement, positive attitudes. And along with that, elicit from them what are their unique ways that they currently employ to involve parents in their classrooms. And maybe some of those ideas can be used to build a more systemic approach across the school, and make sure that professional development is ongoing. So step 3 is then to prioritize the improved communication and collaboration with families. The first thing to do would be to review the methods of communicating with families and use the data from the survey and the families, meaning what do we currently do, how do we currently communicate, and is it adequate, and are there ways that we can improve? Is our communication clear? By the looks of the note, it was a little vague. It was pretty vague, and so maybe some conversation with the staff about making sure our communication is clear, consistent, free of jargon, and also use that data from the survey and the families themselves to start talking about improved methods for communication and parent involvement. And be sure to communicate that the school will be making changes based off of their feedback. That's important to empower parents and community to know this is two-way bi-directional communication. We're just not talking to you about our priorities. We are also eliciting from you what your needs are, what your concerns are, what you feel the issues are, and we're going to use those to make decisions together. And along those lines, we can start thinking about a more regularly meeting PTA group. And I know the principal said he only wanted an advisory group, and again, we don't know what the intention of that was, But if we can start tapping into a few of those interested parents, maybe it's those 8 parents that came to the meeting in the case study, to really start empowering them to become parent leaders and helping others learn how to be involved in the school as well. But again, building those relationships, we have to start doing that right away. And number 4 in the action plan would be to start developing a sustainable and comprehensive plan. Now, I put sustainable on there because, again, I assumed that the school has a plan of some kind somewhere, but it obviously wasn't sustainable. So all of these things that I've just reviewed are good first steps, but it really comes down to, if we want sustainable change and long-lasting change to improve family engagement, we have to have a plan and we have to follow that plan. We could use that information from the surveys, from the initial parent meetings, any community input as the administrators become more visible in the community, the board's input. Use that information, a variety of sources, and find out what they're doing well and what areas they could improve on, and what areas they're going to give the biggest bang for their buck. They could also use the PTA standards as a source for kind of a tool to see where are we on each of those standards and what areas should we start with. Along those lines, as part of the plan, begin to plan back to school nights, literacy nights, and data nights. Again, those help inform parents of what we're doing in the school, and you can sort of use those nights as a springboard into helping them understand how they can then help their child at home. And again, all of this benefits students, because the more families are engaged and the communities are engaged and the parents understand the connection between home and school, the better success for students. And you could involve parents in other committees as well. For example, not just parent-teacher organizations or just talking to them at conferences. Help them see themselves as real partners in decision-making, meaning they might be involved in building leadership team meetings or district leadership team meetings to a certain extent. Not every time is appropriate, but whenever their input could be used to better improve a school improvement plan. And always ongoing training for teachers as well. They need to continue to talk about ways to improve their family involvement strategies and methods, and how they can promote positive PR as well. And then finally, publicize the plan. Let the community and let the families know that you have taken their feedback. You've developed a plan. You've emphasized these are the pieces that are going to help, and make sure that their needs and their issues have been taken into consideration in the development of that plan. Category 3, resolve the issues based on promoting student success. So I believe the resolution to this problem is that a comprehensive, cohesive, and intentional plan is developed to improve communication and involve families so that there is a meaningful partnership. This partnership, as shown by research, will reap gains in academic achievement as well as foster a feeling of connectedness with the school, which improves attendance and graduation rates. So as we debrief the problem, there were some things I was thinking, feeling, and valuing. And in the first category of thinking, I was thinking that parent apathy is actually a pretty common problem, and this scenario was familiar to me. The parents who are already interested and invested and involved, they're the ones that show up for everything, and the challenge is really to find out how to reach out and help other families feel like they actually are a part of the decision making, a part of their child's education, and definitely partners with the school. Phone calls and conferences are great to start building those relationships and to start that communication, but it's just not adequate. It's just not enough. And so I was also feeling like parents just aren't used to being involved in decision making. Again, historically and traditionally, the school kind of runs the kids and the students during the school day, and then they release them to the parents in the after school. And so they're just really not used to this new role, and really thinking about how we bring them along in that process. And I was also thinking that the principal didn't do enough. It felt like he kind of gave up, and really didn't continue to seek out ways to improve family involvement and parent engagement. And again, maybe thinking that he just doesn't understand the importance of it is a possibility. I was feeling frustrated for the assistant principal who was trying to find ways to improve it, and she understood the importance of it. Also frustrated because as assistant principal, your hands may be kind of tied because all decision making really comes down to the principal. So there's only so much she could probably do. I kind of felt empathy for her as well. I can imagine how she might have felt kind of feeling frustrated and defeated, particularly when you're new in your position and you're full of great ideas and you really know what's best for kids and you really want to get that started, and yet feeling that the system's kind of against that and kind of trying to fight against that system. And actually at one point I was encouraged, and when the principal had agreed to actually have a meeting, and yet I was also surprised about that as well. His attitude at the beginning kind of made me think he would not have done that. So it was an encouragement to actually see that he was willing to hold that initial meeting, and hopefully that can be used as a springboard to build the next steps and ultimately the plan. And of course I was valuing communication, number one. In our text, School and Community Relations, the communication is described as that mutual sharing of ideas and feelings. It would be better if the principal and the assistant principal could have that two-way exchange of ideas and feelings to begin to build that plan for parent involvement, and then begin to build that plan involving the parents themselves. According to this case study, all we know is that the principal's taken a few phone calls and chatted with parents with conferences, and that's really not sufficient for encouraging parent involvement. I also valued relationships. If the school is not building relationships with families and community now, they're not going to have that positive reputation with the community. They maybe end up being reactive to problems when they happen within the school. And then finally, I value the shared ownership of the school and the success of students. It's important to include families and community in those plans for school and decisions for their children. They should see themselves as partners and a part of the education of their children. Okay, so as we debriefed the problem, there were some unresolved issues. Based on this case study, we still don't know why the principal said he would consider forming an advisory group, but he didn't want an official PTA. In fact, we didn't even really find out what he had hoped the purpose of the advisory group was. We also don't know the history of why the principal seemed hesitant to put effort into improving family involvement and decreasing parent apathy. For example, he didn't give Mrs. Rose much encouragement when she suggested ideas about parent involvement. In addition, he mentioned he thought if he put effort into trying to get families involved, the consequences would be negative and it would make the situation worse. This really is an unresolved issue because I don't know why he thinks the situation would be worse if they worked on improving family and parent involvement. And then after developing the action plan, I still don't know what type of relationship the principal and Mrs. Rose have or could have. In order for them to execute this plan and make it sustainable, they really just have to have open communication between them, and they need to be on the same page. And any unresolved issue could kind of get in the way of making that plan successful. And as I reflect on Standard 4, the first component being in my plan of action as an educational leader, I promote the success of all students by first developing a plan that evaluates how the school currently communicated with parents and uses input from the administration, from the staff, and the families to improve communication. That communication can be leveraged into inviting parents into other kinds of workshops, other kinds of learning opportunities, other kinds of purposes to get them involved in the school. So ultimately our goal is to get parents to understand that they are partners in their child's learning and that they are learning ways to support their child at home. And since the communication should be two-way, I have proposed things like face-to-face meetings and opportunities to hear the concerns and the issues of the parents, in addition to the surveys, and in addition to making sure that the school has scheduled data nights, literacy nights, back to school nights, and math nights. So parents can learn, again, more about what assessments mean, more about what the curriculum is being used, how best to support their child's learning. And finally, the research has definitely shown that frequent parent communication is likely to have a positive effect on test scores and improve student success and student achievement. So my action plan's main goal was to develop a comprehensive communication and parent involvement plan. And so since we know that the involvement of parents and families is what's best for students and does promote academic success, that's why my action plan focused on the development of that. And then not to mention not just responding to the research, but also responding to state accreditation as well. Again, I mentioned that the new Kansas accreditation model has relationships as part of their rubric. Component 2, promoting personal well-being for the students. My plan of action as an educational leader promotes the personal well-being of all students by, again, promoting that the survey be sent to parents so that we get a sense of the barriers that parents are having to their involvement. I also suggest that administrators become more involved in the community by way of organizational meetings and face-to-face meetings as well. These actions will help the educational leaders understand the economics and social implications of their community and how that might be impeding parent involvement and getting in the way of that engagement and then the students themselves. I also use the improved communication plan and the idea of widely publicizing that plan in a very clear, concise, and consistent way to stakeholders as a way to improve the well-being of students, because the community can better understand what the school is doing and then support the school and what it's doing, and that will ultimately improve the education of the students and the relationships with the communities and all the stakeholders. And my action plans, steps 3 and 4, are all about prioritizing communication and collaboration and developing that sustainable plan. Again, because research shows that students exhibit more positive attitudes and behavior when parents are involved in the school. And component 3, promoting community's engagement for families and other stakeholders. Again, my plan of action as an educational leader promotes the community's engagement for families and other stakeholders by first promoting the reestablishment of a parent organization, either PTA or PTO, so parents can begin to have input into how the school can respond to their concerns and hear what's going on in the school. I have proposed several opportunities for the parents to be involved in the school itself and to be a part of those topics that are used to inform families and educate families, and also provide an opportunity for bidirectional communication. And then the second bullet, involvement in community organizations, I propose, and becoming more visible. And those are designed to, again, to improve two-way communication, continue to build positive relationships, and ensure that the school is more active in improving school community relations. So finally, as we sum up, in conclusion, my response to the case study has shown that I address Standard 4 in each of the areas of collaboration, resource management, relationship building with families and caregivers, and relationship building with community partners.